Welcome to my talk on the Crogl Knowledge Graph. My name is Lipyeow Lim. I'm a distinguished engineer and the head of AI at Crogl. I would like to start off this talk with the question, which tool do I query next? This is a question that autonomous agents will have to figure out. And it's the same question that human SOC analysts will have to answer when they get woken up in the middle of the night with a suspicious login alert. Now, I'm going to show you in the next 9 to 10 minutes that the Crogl Knowledge Graph knows how your systems connect so that every analyst can actually answer this question using the Crogl Knowledge Graph. Let's dive right in. I'm going to start off with a light-hearted joke, if you will. Splunk, Jira, and an identity provider walk into a bar. The bartender back here asks them, "Hey, do any of you know Alex?" Splunk says, "Yes, I know Alex from his recipient email." The identity provider said, No, I know Alex from his user principal name." And Jira says, No, you're both wrong. I know Alex from his reported email address. And then the bartender back here says, No, Alex is sitting right here. And his email is alex@example.com. Now, this is actually quite accurate when it comes to security investigations. When you're trying to query multiple sources, even when you're trying to query for the same entity, in this case, Alex, the person Alex, you're confronted with different systems storing the same value, the same data for Alex in different field names and different value types as well. And Crogl, the Crogl Knowledge Graph, helps you to correlate all of these together so you know how to query for Alex with Splunk, with the entity provider, and with Jira. Now, for most of you, you have a particular data strategy, and Crogl works with whatever data strategy you have. For some of you, you normalize all your data into a data lake or a SIM, and Crogl can help you with correlating data across different tables in that data lake or different indexes in Splunk. Now, for those of you who actually choose not to centralize and normalize your data into a data lake or SIM, you want to keep the data where they are, Crogl helps. The Crogl Knowledge Graph helps to actually you to query all the data that are in its different source systems and be able to correlate data across these different source systems. So the Crogl Knowledge Graphs helps you with the right pivot at the right moment. Now, what is the Crogl Knowledge Graph? Now, it remembers what your analysts had to memorize. Now, essentially, it is a data structure and evidence-backed map of fields that helps to connect the data in different source systems. Just like how it would connect the recipient email in Splunk with the user principal name in the identity provider and the reporter.email address of Jira. The Knowledge Graph will connect all these three fields together, and it does so with sort of real evidence that's observed and validated. So it's not a feed, it's not a SIM, it's not a data lake, it's not a thing to be searched. How does Crogl learn this knowledge graph? You can see in this illustration here how it does it, right? It connects to the different source systems, your SIM, your EDRs, and so on. It observes the values and the metadata in these source systems. It tries to validate where the fields overlap, where the values overlap, and when it finds overlapping values, it records an edge, and it remembers that edge by persisting it in the Crogl Knowledge Graph. So you don't need a schema mapping project to be done before Crogl can start learning, before Crogl can start investigating. And if all that sounds too abstract, this is a visualization of a Crogl Knowledge Graph that was learned from one of our operational environments. Here you see that the red clusters are all the data in Splunk. The green clusters are all the data in Jira. The purple, all the data in Databricks, and the blue, all the data in Log Analytics. And there's a cluster here right at the side that hasn't been fully connected with the rest yet. So the goal edges are the cross connector edges. They connect, say, a Jira field to a field in Splunk, for example, the green and the red, right? Or it connects a Splunk field with a field in Databricks. And this is how then Crogl enables these cross systems pivot. Of course, it also allows you to pivot between the data that's within a particular system as well. Now, what does this mean, right? How does this play out in an investigation, right? So when an alert lands in Jira, and if you use Crogl to investigate the alert, the knowledge graph recognizes the fields in Jira, and it then consults the knowledge graph to pivot to the different systems that has got correlated information. And that allows either your human analyst or the Crogl agent to investigate these correlated systems and get a fuller picture of the investigations. So Crogl does the navigation, and you get to make the call of how to deal with what's coming out of the investigation. And of course, most analysts, like some of you, may not really care about the whole process. You just let the agent investigate, but you care about the output, right? And this is what the analyst will see at the end of the Crogl investigation, an investigation report that reports on what it thinks is the recommendation, in this case to contain, and a confidence score. But it also tells you in a summary that it has actually investigated multiple sources, and these are the sources pointed out by the Crogl knowledge graph: the AWS EC2, the VPC flow logs, CloudTrail, CrowdStrike EDR, and 3 threat lists. In fact, the summary also tells you that because it investigated the CrowdStrike EDR, it actually found that the CrowdStrike sensor was not installed on this machine, and there are no logs, no CrowdStrike logs for this particular machine. Now, what's the impact of this? How does this impact your SOC? Well, this actually turns tribal knowledge into shared operational memory. Right? And with that, it's going to enable speed. You're going to have fewer dead ends, faster pivots. It's going to enable consistency because every analyst, every autonomous runs will be able to investigate in the same way. You'll be able to do the same pivots to the right data sources to find the right correlations. And there's a compounding effect here because this, as it continues to learn more and more correlations from your underlying data sources, your investigations get more and more rich. So useful pivots stop depending on who is on shift now. Now, can you trust the knowledge graph? Well, we do use AI models to learn the knowledge graph, right? However, the model can propose, the evidence must prove. So we have an evidence gate that ensures that we query the data to find the real overlaps, the real evidence that there is a correlation there before we add that edge. So those edges are not hallucinations. Now, I started the talk with what tools to query next. Now I'm going to ask you to ask it of your own stack. Crogl has a free installer at crogl.com/download. Now download the installer, configure the systems, connect 2 systems to Crogl, let it learn. Might take hours depending on how complex the data in your 2 systems are. And then run an investigation and see for yourself how the Crogl knowledge graph works. And I will be thrilled to hear from you, to hear any feedback, any questions from you. So feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.